Welcome everyone to another GameStalk Live. All right, so this is going to be a good episode today. No, it's really not. It's going to be a shit show. There's several reasons for this, people. I've been really busy lately dealing with my parents and stuff, and I've had no time to game, let alone really... I'm just going to be blunt. This is the first time I've ever done a show where I haven't spent at least 2 hours gathering information, putting the show together, and really delving into, topics. Like it's so it might be a little crazy here, but that's why I have two guests here, because these guys are awesome. Colt Eastwood, thank you for showing up today and being a great friend and bailing me out.
This is one of my favorite places to be, hanging out with Fonz. Fonz, how long have we been friends?
Almost 6 years.
Yeah. So
almost 6 years.
This is where we're at. GameStalk Live. Yeah, you may not have dove into all this stuff, but Hargeet and I have been talking every day, and we're ready to talk today.
Exactly. Yep. And of course, I'm going to offer my opinions, my objective opinions. Sometimes some people say my whiny opinions, We're going to get into it. Hargeet, thank you for showing up today, man. Hargeet Chani, people. He's a great guy.
Well, thanks for having me on. Yeah, and happy to help out. Why not, right? But it's been a spicy week. It's been a spicy few weeks, but we'll see where it goes. We have a few more weeks of this. Hopefully by the end of this month or next month, whatever, this should be done. I hope.
Yeah, it definitely sounds pretty spicy. I've heard little bits and pieces, and I did get to listen to Gaz's show yesterday. That was probably the biggest, like the longest thing I've heard about any of the stuff that happened during the week. But, it was a great show. And you were on there, Colt. I was kind of upset, though, because, I mean, I'm not upset that you were with Gaz, but I was upset that you were on his show the day before my show, giving your opinions and everything, because it's always that way, right? And I'm sure it's even the same when you do my show, and then you have to do your show tomorrow. You're like... man, this kind of sucks because I gotta. Yeah. But hey, you're here.
This is what we do. Yeah, this is definitely what we do.
But no, definitely. Yeah, exactly. Jarrett Bishop. I picked a couple of bums off the street. That's exactly what I did. Yeah, but they're here on my show, and I'm happy. Anyways, let's get started with this. Before we get into the FTC and everything going on. I shouldn't even call it that. I should say it's Microsoft versus the world, or Xbox versus the world, which is what I titled the video, because that's kind of what it seems like. It's total chaos over there. It's craziness with that hearing and stuff I'm seeing on Twitter regarding this. It's like everybody has a different opinion, and we'll get into that later. But first, I want to talk about Larian Studios, of course, the people that brought us Baldur's Gate series. Baldur's Gate 3 is in the news this week. I did see that. And I was very excited to see something coming from them, a statement they made about their game on consoles, especially going to the PlayStation 5. They're still working on the Xbox version. They've been talking about that. The PlayStation 5 was delayed. It was delayed by a week, I think. Not bad, but they basically said that they don't want to bring these games out on console until they can get the 60 frames right on these consoles, because they're not going to mess around with 30 FPS, and they don't care if they don't hit some sort of hard deadline to release a game. They'd rather get the game running the way they want to run it. And I respect the hell out of that as developers. These developers, to say something like that really just like took a crap on so many other developers out there. And I think it's great that they said this. I'm glad. How about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, first, Larian, I think they didn't create the series, right? They're just doing Baldur's Gate 3. I thought it was BioWare who did the first one, but either way. But yeah, so yeah, I think look, it's a decision they can make, right? And in the case of a game like that, the affinity is not console, it is PC. And they're releasing it there, right? And hopefully the majority of the players that are already going to be on PC, like good, they'll go get it. This will now come to console. It'll be a good thing for console players as well. But so I don't think it's a huge hit. right? But I think it is the right thing to do, right? For them, it's like, hey, I want to get this right instead of putting out something that's buggy. And we're seeing it for a lot of games, even from big publishers. Jedi Survivor is a good, example of that, where it comes out extremely buggy, and yet it's a good game. And yet, do you dock it or not? It's better if they just wait. Maybe those publishers can't. At least in this case, it looks like they're doing the right thing, saying, hey, PC's working. We're going to put it out there. That's what people expect it anyway. We'll get it to console, but we'll get it there when it's ready. It's the same with Xbox. They're waiting to get that fixed. Apparently, Microsoft has sent their ninjas in to say, all right, how do we get this working right on the Series S, which was apparently an issue. And they've got it going. It's working, but they need to polish it, right? So good on them to get it right.
Yeah, 100%. Colt, how do you feel about what they said? And are you going to play Baldur's Gate 3? Are you a fan at all?
No,
I'm a fan of the series.
I've never played it. It was one of those games that came out when I was kind of not playing mini games.
Gotcha.
But they have inferred that the Series S is holding back Baldur's Gate from being released on Xbox console.
Yes.
So they have the team, like Hargeet said, they have the super team. I forgot what they're called. Tim will say it. It's 3 letters. I forgot what they're called, but their special team, their technology team. I can't remember what it is. The FTC. We'll just call it the FTC.
Advanced Technology Group, I think.
There you go. Advanced Technology Team is there trying to get split screen working on Xbox Series S. So literally you cannot play the game, or you're not going to get it on Xbox Series X because the Series S is holding back that release. And so it will probably it'll release on PlayStation 5 and PC, and then Xbox fans will have to wait while they figure out how they can get it working. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I hear the game's really great. They're saying 75 to 100 hours. It's a classic RPG style game, so it should be pretty good. I haven't seen a lot on it yet.
Like a few weeks later, is that right? Something like that.
After the PC.
Yeah, it's something like that, right? It's like a month later or something.
Yeah,
it's
a month later. Because what they did, they actually moved it up a month for PC. It was going to come out the same time as the PlayStation 5, and they decided to move it up, which is traditionally not something we see a developer do as well. I mean, it must be really ready for PC. I know PC guys have been able to enjoy the game somewhat, early access and stuff on PC. And matter of fact, I was just told today by a good friend on the Just Gaming podcast I was just on, they were telling me that they got the game for $30 on PC back when it was early access because they offered them deals that early. So you can get stuff like that on PC apparently, and that's awesome, man. I'm looking forward to the game myself. I don't know if I'm going to pick it up on PlayStation. Honestly, I don't think I will because it's coming out the same day as Starfield.
Yeah, that's an interesting choice to have that game come out the same day, right?
Why?
Why?
You know. Here's the thing. It's kind of interesting because think of it this way: it's coming out the same day as Starfield on the PlayStation 5 because they don't have Starfield to play.
Yeah.
So they get a game. They get a game to play.
I wonder if the delay is that. What do you think? Do you think Fonz maybe like PlayStation went to them and said, "Hey, we want to have a foil to Starfield"? This is the closest thing they're going to get.
I doubt they did that. But they have a game to play that day, and
yeah.
You know, you might see some Sony guys kind of like trying to, push this game or tout it up and say it's better than Starfield, or who knows. But there's going to be some silliness like that. But traditionally,
it might score high like Starfield.
Oh, it could. It could score very high because Baldur's Gate games are really good. But what I was going to say though is Baldur's Gate, they don't traditionally they don't sell very well on consoles. They're traditionally a PC game, really. So it's like to them, I think console's secondary anyway. So I'm not really seeing them in a rush to really put this out on Xbox because they need to, or even the PlayStation 5 for that matter. They're just having issues with the Series S. That's the reason why they've kind of pushed that version off for Xbox, because of the whole insane idea or mandate that Xbox has that if you put a game out on the Series X, it has to come out on the Series S the same day. I personally don't like that mandate. I know mostly out there.
How could you not do that though?
I think it has to. Yeah.
I mean, there's just no way that you could say, sorry, that game's not available on Series S.
Okay, but this leads me to another topic then. So, what if PlayStation does have a mid-gen refresh and Xbox clearly says they don't? They have the Series S sort of holding them into, they're basically in a corner now. They're putting up, they put themselves in a box. They have to have the Series S continue on.
Yep.
So what happens if PlayStation has an 18 teraflop console that comes out?
What will happen?
What is that? No, I'm saying, what does it do to Xbox?
It'll have some maybe like partial benefit in some games. That's it, right? Because ultimately, it's not going to make a material difference. Because like if you want to go past where we are today, you need substantial more power, right? It's not just I did from 10 to 18. That's not going to do enough.
No,
because you got a 4090 that can barely keep up with some of these games. So they need to go substantially higher.
I understand.
Give you something better.
Here's what the PS5 Pro will do: is it will allow you to have a higher quality ray tracing experience, or more often have a ray tracing quality experience at 30 frames. There's no way that the PS5 Pro would come out in 2025 and be able to give you 60 frames in ray tracing, other than there are a couple of exceptions where games will run with ray tracing performance, like Doom Eternal and Spider-Man, which are basically Gen 8 games that are still being pushed forward and can do that. But moving forward, Hargeet's right. The PS5 Pro will be the same architecture. It'll just be a little bit more power. You'll be able to load up a game like Final Fantasy 16 and it'll hold 60 more often, or maybe it won't have to drop to 720p. Maybe it'll keep closer to 1080p. But what people don't realize is that the Xbox Series X and the PS5 are middleware 2018 launch GPUs.
Yeah.
And so but that's super impressive. Like if you have that desktop PC at home, you can run anything at 1080p however you want, pretty much. So the PlayStation 5 Pro, and if there
is one, and I think there will be one, but
I think there will be, and I think Xbox won't have one. But to get to what Hargeet's saying is you're still in the same family in the architecture. So developers aren't going to be able to design way out and leave the Series S behind. I mean, the reason why they have problems with Series S is they try to get everything all together and they have to work extra hard to make it happen. But that hardware and that architecture set in the Series S it's right there. It's where gaming should be able to run. It's not that bad.
I'm just worried about, okay, so I look at the console space and I'm like, I said this years ago, and I talked to you about this just yesterday, Colt, on the phone. I said on RDX, I remember telling you guys distinctly before these consoles came out, I said, look, I'm worried about developers pushing for fidelity over frames.
Yes.
I'm worried about them really pushing the envelope for graphics, because this is traditionally what's happened every console generation. And I'm sick of it. I want more frames. I was assured, by my friends, dealer, everybody, no. They're going to have 60 frames. These games can easily do that. And at the time, Gen 8 games are easily, done at 60 frames on these consoles. Even on the Series S, you can do the same thing. But and I'm fine with how games like Odyssey looks. Assassin's Creed Odyssey looked great. It ran great. 60 frames, beautiful.
Or Valhalla. Like we were in the bliss. We were in the bliss stage the first year and a half, where games really they didn't have a hard time running, or they didn't drop to 1080p that much.
But that's something else I was going to say as well. Let's say the PlayStation 5 can run these games just a little bit better, but these developers are going to continue to push the envelope for fidelity. This is what traditionally happens. This is what's going to continue to happen going forward. It's always going to be that way with the console space. Unfortunately, that's what happens. I'm just hoping, when it comes to ray tracing, they allow us to at least turn it off on consoles.
I don't know. We've been warning you, it's been me, D, and Zocker. The whole point of UE5, where you get all the beautiful graphics, is it turns on ray tracing. It's forced. You have to turn it on. Now they have a mode that'll give you the higher frames, but it turns it off. So you go back to Gen 8, right? And if you're okay with that, that's great. But that's what you're going to get, right? So if you want that UE5 beauty, it's baked in. You have to have RT.
Yeah.
And if that's the way it is, I'm very afraid 30 is going to be normal. I'm very afraid 30 is going to be normal.
Yeah. And we kind of talked about this last week too, and people were calling me, whining and all this stuff. But I'm just being a realist, people. I've been around since the very first generation of consoles, and I'm telling you what I've seen every generation. Yeah. There was a generation during the I want to say PS2 or PS3 era. There was more 60 frames games back then than there is now.
Yep.
But it's just once they started to push that fidelity, got better hardware, and could make some more realistic graphics, that's what developers have chosen to do. And I've tried, I'm trying to tell you guys that that this is what's going to come. And a lot of people are telling me, no, they're going to pull more out of the hardware. The hardware is a PC. This is a form factor PC. This is a small form factor PC. It's different from how it was in the past. The only chance they have at getting more out of these games is software. The software could get better. It could get lighter. It could get, smoother to get more animations, more ray tracing out, and not tax the system as much. I heard ray tracing is actually getting better, but
it's super taxing on hardware. And some of this is for the service of the games. When you talk about when we used to have 60 frames more often a couple generations ago, like now we have more sophisticated physics modeling in games, which is very processor intensive, and we have more enemies and more things happening on screen, and the worlds are more vibrant. And this isn't just graphics, and it's not just pixels or resolution. It's we've kind of become accustomed and attuned to our games being more alive and more vibrant and more realistic, and with that the scope is widened, so the way that the games are more reactive and more enjoyable for us to play is at the cost of processing, and it chews up all of the different hardware sets. You've got things that are taxing the graphics card or the GPU, and you've got the processing intensive things. Like when we talk about Starfield, like everything that makes that game what we love about it is completely taxing out modern hardware. And I even said, if this game doesn't come with a 60 frames mode, I would fully expect it on PC to be very intensive for middle ground or really great PC builds. Like if you want to run this game the way it looks on screen on that Xbox Series X that we saw at the showcase in June, it's July now. If you want it to look like that on your PC, but then kick it to 60 frames, you better have a really great PC because it's going to be really intensive. Yeah, and to make that leap is not another $500. It's like another 1,000 plus.
Yeah. It definitely is. Dorian Gray in the chat, I see, he says all these people want to buy a Nissan, but want what Maseratis do. No, I just want less features than the Maserati. You know what I'm saying? Use less features. I want the games to run great. I don't need all the bells and whistles graphically. I don't.
The good thing about consoles is they're not like just a Nissan. Like consoles can give you the experience of like a really high-end souped up Nissan, a sports edition, a luxury edition, Nissan Maxima. I don't know my Nissans much anymore, but anyway, I always tell people, like, if I show you a screenshot of a game running on Series X or Xbox One X, and then I compare it to a screenshot on PC, you're like, they look identical. And for decades, Fonz, we've been playing games on Xbox or PlayStation
at 30
that look amazing, but they can't double the frame like a PC can.
Yeah.
And, maybe you need to spend a couple $100 more to do that on PC. But for the most part, like, my point being, for $300 or $500, you get an incredible gaming experience.
Yeah.
No argument. For that price on a console, it's an unbelievable value.
It really is
a pretty good value. I mean, but like why it happened before though is because of just the way of TVs, right? So the tech didn't exist to be able to buffer out. So your TVs were 60 hertz, so you had to put a frame out every once every whatever 60 times a second. You had to do it. That's just
half or full.
Gotcha.
Yep.
There was no way around it, right? So because of that, they basically had to put out a frame, and so they either faked it or whatever, but it was always 60 because of that. It wasn't because they were trying to actually generate 60 frames per second. It just was a facet of what we had at the time with NTSC and PAL. If you were outside of the US, right, that's 50 versus 60, but that's what it was.
Oh, Hargeet, speaking my language right now.
Yeah, so that's why it was 60, but it did feel good, actually. It felt pretty good playing those games at the time, right? They did a pretty good job making it nice and fast and responsive, and because there were cartridges, you didn't have load times either. You just kind of like plopped into where you need to go.
You didn't need to blow in them either.
Yeah.
You didn't have to blow in them to make them work. Yeah, remember those days? Those were fun. Those were fun days. I remember those. Let me get to a couple of super chats here. I've got one from Onyx, you son of a bitch.
What?
He says, Hargeet, do Twitter, man. Hargeet's going to stay off that cesspool. All right. He's not going to join Twitter, but no, but Fonz, my favorite pick. I hate this picture so bad. And it's not like hate for this person. It's just the worst pick of this person he could have possibly used. What is up with that?
Well, I mean, our hair goes, and we hold on to it as long as we can. I'm trying.
Gosh, looks like a cross between Gallagher the comedian and like
Carrot Top.
I guess.
I haven't paid attention, but he's Dreamcast guy. I'm wondering what he thinks about the Sega potential purchase thing.
You know what I
you mean Sarah
that?
Bond out shopping for it? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it's something that he would say, keep dreaming about, because it might happen. And we'll get to that
I
too.
think there's a good possibility it does happen.
Danny Passion Official, what's up, brother? I appreciate you, man. He says, here I am enjoying the conversation while I play COD Modern Warfare 2 at 4K 120 FPS on max settings, PC all day, baby. Fonz, Jedi with RT off on PC still runs horrible. Gosh, yeah, I heard that game is just not running great on anything still.
That game bothers me. Yeah.
That's sad.
I'm running... You know me, and I'm playing that game in the 30 frames mode because I got tired of it looking really chunky and then not even holding 60 ever. So
I had to put it aside because the game itself, I mean, on console, it chugs down in the performance mode to below 720p at times. And I was sitting there and I was looking at Cal, the character you play, and I turned my character around and I'm trying to look at his face. There was absolutely no details. It's just like a blur.
Wow.
Look at it, people.
He looks
look
like
at
a
it on your
Jawa.
Series X. It looks
Does he
terrible.
look like a Jawa? Fonz?
It does not look right. It looks like, no, it's worse than a Jawa. It looks like you took a character off of a Switch at times and you just threw it in a world that looks pretty decent. For some reason, the FSR on the console blurs certain things out. And in this game anyways. But in other games like Diablo 4, they use FSR and it looks great. So I don't know the differences there. I don't know what they're doing, but they're both using FSR 2.0. I know that much.
I'm going to see which version they're using.
Yeah, it's 2.0.
Right. So they're using the real 2.0. Let me see if that is on console.
And this is Respawn.
It looks like it is.
I expect better from Respawn, to be honest.
Yeah.
And like I said, I won't go back to it. I might go back to
UE,
it just to finish it. Yeah.
Is that UE?
It's UE. It's UE.
Okay.
I might go back to it just to finish it off.
4 maybe? UE 4?
They're not using
it's 4.
Frostbite?
No, it's UE, UE4, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, the ray tracing, there are times where in real time I can see the dual lightsabers reflecting off of like the aluminum floor or the shiny floor. I'm like, oh, that kind of looks nice. It's a fleeting moment. And I remember talking to a dealer about, he was talking about sometimes the ray tracing, like you really have to keep an eye out for it. And it can be so immersive once you get used to looking for it. But
you can have some,
the trade-off doesn't work for me.
No,
like
not on
baked in
console
lighting
especially.
can look incredible. And Digital Foundry just said that developers should be using a combination of cube maps, a combination of screen space reflections, and these are two faked reflections on shiny surfaces.
I hear that.
And then they can use some ray tracing shadows, which aren't as taxing, And if they use all these things at once, like you have to use three or four different things.
You know
to
what you
fool
just
the
said?
audience into,
you know what you just said?
What's
They
that?
have to do more work. That's what you just said. Ray tracing is making it a bit easier for them with these.
I would have to ask a developer, is it easier to turn ray tracing on? Like when I did 3D modeling 5 years ago, it was a check mark, like to turn ray tracing on and have it path trace the image when it renders. But developers are supposed to be using a combination of these cheats to make lighting and reflections look really cool, but allow them to do everything else they want into the game, because they have this budget that the team has to work with for the hardware.
Yeah. So the first time, Colt, that I found that there was a compelling argument for it is actually Starfield, where it's generated, but it's not totally generated, but they don't want to deal with baked lighting because it's generated, right? And then they're like, you know what, we can just
the bake has to be done manually per area.
And you'll just get lighting the way it should be, right? It just bounces correctly and it just does it, right? Versus them trying to figure out how to make that work in a procedurally generated environment for 1,000 planets, right? That is the first case where I'm like, yeah, that makes it much easier. For the development part of it, it just makes it much easier to not have to deal with
it. And it looks good.
It
looks really good.
So it's the first time I'm like,
and it's not full path tracing, right? Hargeet, it's not like it's not full real ray tracing. It's like a global illumination solution that they come up with in Creation Engine 2. And I remember when I got back from Los Angeles and I talked to Fonz, I'm like, dude, I will play that game just like how it looks. Fonz, give us a or global illumination trailer for Starfield right now.
No.
Come on, give us a little 10-second speech about the realistic lighting that will immerse you and fill your space pants. Go.
Starfield. Need some reverb.
Yeah.
Starfield. It will have the greatest global illumination you've ever seen in your life. Nothing comes close to the way the Starfield looks. The planets, the ship, your character. Everything within this game will be lit up with ray tracing. The best you've ever seen in your lifetime. Even on the Series X at 30 frames per second. It will look great. It will just run like shit. But don't you worry. Starfield will still be a better game than anything on any other platform. Starfield.
Nice.
Buy it now.
$69.99.
All right.
Or $9.99 on Game Pass. Wait until the price increases.
All right. Somebody hire me. I want to do some voice acting, damn it.
Yeah. I thought that was so great. When you first got everybody all excited about your Starfield bits, and everyone was quoting it, like, I can't even write Starfield really, really long. Everyone's like, I hear it in Fonz's voice. And somebody was like, grown men doing this. And we were laughing on your show. Everybody was having
goofy.
A good time.
It's not even like serious. Like it's just fun.
They really thought that we were like worshiping the game. And you're talking about like space crabs and eating cosmic brownies. It was great. Anyway,
it's a good time. Space crabs. Space crabs. Hold up. Hey, you're back to drinking Mountain Dew. I see that.
I never left. And we're not sponsored, by the way.
Buy it now at your local CVS
I was
stores.
off the dew for about 2 months, but let's move on.
Who's off the dew, people? Well, I got a couple of chats here. I got one from Cerebral Assassin. Thank you very much for the chat. He says, good to see you, all three of you together. Nice. Yes, it's great to be here with my good friend and co-panel member, Hargeet Chani from the RDX podcast, Tuesdays on Dealer Gaming's channel. We're over there doing our thing there, although I have not been there. Last week, I wasn't there. But I should be back this Tuesday for that. And, of course, Colt Eastwood.
We're not on this Tuesday, just an FYI.
Oh, what happened?
It's July 4th.
Oh!
It's a holiday.
Do we have a show at all this week?
This week, no.
Oh, darn it.
Sorry.
All right. Well, you know what? The show's over, people. This is done. I'm out of here. No, I'm just... Onyx again with the scary face. He says, just mod Star Wars Survivor PC with DLSS and F Generator. I don't know what F Generator is, but
Frame generator.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, you could turn half that crap off if you don't want it on your PC, but I don't know.
Dorian Gray said I sounded like Moses on the mountain.
Love it. Love it.
I'll take it. It's better than, Gaz in his bedroom.
I can't argue that. I really can't.
Today I was, sidebar, I was talking with Gaz, personal stuff and everything. And I had made mention that I was a very busy man. And he came back with this speech about, a man being busy. And he did his best impression of like David Attenborough. And it was just so goofy. It was funny.
He's a real talent. Yep.
I love Gaz. Gaz is hilarious, man. Makes me laugh. I tried to get him on this show today. He couldn't come. He said he would not show up. He doesn't want to be here. Doesn't want to join us. Yeah. Anyways, let's talk about the FTC, or I should say Xbox versus the world, because they're basically fighting off. The FTC, for some reason, from everything I've gathered, seems to be fighting on the side of Sony. Hence the world, right? That's just it's funny to me that this whole thing, the little bits and pieces that I have heard, because I'm not following the case like you guys have, but basically I'm going to jump to you, Hargeet. Give me a rundown of what's been going on during this hearing all week, because shenanigans are afoot. So
look, the problem is the FTC. As we know, they kind of started with no, you're not buying this, right? They didn't start with it. Here's analyze the market. Does it make sense? Will this be better for competition? Will it be worse? They just started with, no, we're not going to allow it, right? And since that was the case, they basically put out feelers for anybody. Give me a reason to latch onto, right? And Sony said, oh, I got one. It sucks for me. And so they took everything they said verbatim and said, see, it's the end of the world. And then NVIDIA came in and said, oh, this is kind of bad. See, it's the end of the world. And then Google came in, see? And so they basically just took all their word for it and just said, okay, we'll just make a case out of it. Except there's no case, right? And ultimately, the entirety is about, is the market thriving, yes or no? Will this take away the market? Or is there a consumer disbenefit? In other words, an area where the consumer would suddenly start losing, right? Well, none of that exists, right? And I liken it to something like, let's say the Beatles, a catalog of music is suddenly bought by somebody else. Does this end the music industry? Of course not. Joe Rogan's podcast moves from YouTube to Spotify. Does that end YouTube? Of course not. But it's a big podcast, right? Call of Duty is a big game. So what? Roblox is much bigger. Does anybody care? What if one of these platforms bought Roblox? Would that end the gaming industry? Is anybody going to put up their hand and say that?
Nope.
The biggest game, period, is Minecraft. It's owned by Microsoft. Did that end the industry? No, it's thriving. It's doing better. All these players are doing better. There's just no point to this, right? In vertical mergers, the only thing you have to find out is, will that end competition? The answer in all cases, is no. Even if they took all of it and made it exclusive, it doesn't change a damn thing. People on those other platforms, like Nintendo, doesn't even have Call of Duty, and it's beating both of their competitors in both volume sales of their first party stuff and their hardware. They're killing their competition. There's just no way to look at it otherwise. Well, that's why they don't want it as part of it, right? They keep saying no, Nintendo isn't a part of this.
Let me jump in here and just say, why isn't Nintendo a part of this? Because Nintendo, I know Nintendo usually does their own thing and everything, but they're still part of the console market.
There's other entrants as well, but yeah, no, literally that's the reason, because Nintendo disproves everything in their case. It says a console that outperforms both of its competitors, a console that does not have anything from the Call of Duty series on that console, yet thrives.
But there's still competition because there's still an entity there. There's still a corporation making the same thing the other two companies are making, which are the games. Yep. But why are people buying them? Because they're making exclusive, compelling games.
They have stuff on it, and it does things differently, right? You can take it with you, or you can come home and plug it into a dock, and it's back on your TV. And that has merit. It is what it is. Some people like it, some people don't, whatever, but that's the way it is, right? Some people are permanent dock, but it turns out the majority of players are actually playing portable. They take it with them, right? And hey, that's a good portable machine, right? To that, I'd also add, we've had 2 big portables come out that also play Call of Duty with the Steam Deck and with the Rogue Ally, right? That came out. There's other ones in that, and those should count as consoles. They're consoles, bespoke hardware that play games, right? So we're not even looking at those, yet they exist, and they will continue to have this game. They will have Call of Duty, right? The whole argument just falls apart when you say, here are the market entrants, and the only possible issue is with one platform, PlayStation, that Microsoft is a minority in comparison to, right? They totally dominate Microsoft. That's just the facts, right? And yet here they are trying to compete with them, and you're saying they shouldn't do that because it might hurt Sony's market position. Who cares?
No, right? I mean, they're saying they're trying to say it'll hurt consumers, but yeah.
No, they aren't. Because that's what the judge pushed back on. Was like, okay, we're not here to defend Sony. We're here to protect the consumer, right? So tell me why this hurts.
Because the FTC was posturing it that they were worried about, the FTC was worried about Sony's consumers and competition.
Exactly. And the judge is like, well, even if they don't have to buy an Xbox, which out of the normal like market, that's totally okay, right? You can put your own hardware forward, right? But there's PC. And they're like, well, people would have to go buy it. They're like, but everybody was at home like a couple of years ago. Didn't they buy PCs? Don't they already have PCs that can play these games? So like, oh, but it needs special hardware. Like, people didn't buy $200 PCs. This is the judge pushing back on the FTC. Like, this is like, why couldn't they just go somewhere else?
I heard the judge pushed back a few times during this court case, right? And all the times I've heard that she's pushed back is against the FTC.
Yes.
Is that correct?
There were minor times when it was against the other side too.
Okay.
But it would be like 5% versus 95%. It was vastly on the FTC because they have no case. They have no case, right? So
I thought the case started out as being, about the cloud space.
Well, even in the cloud, the first person that came in to talk about that was, I guess it was really Jim Ryan, but that came out later. But it was Google, and Google said, no, we compete against PlayStation, Xbox, PC, Switch. We compete against all of those, right? So they basically took that whole separate market thing and threw it out the window, right? Their own, like the Google, like the person who was there at the beginning of Stadia, created the whole, whatever, he was there the whole time, right? It's like, nope. No, we competed against those other, platform. I don't want to call them platforms, but competitors. And so we are part of the same market, right? So it was content that was our problem. Right. And to create AAA content takes a lot of time. So if you want to do that, we have to invest a lot. And that became a question for us as to whether we were going to do it or not. And that's where we faltered. Right. So, looking at, like we all heard in the background, they were going to go try to buy somebody like Bethesda. Right. To say, OK, well, we need to have that kind of content. Otherwise, it's very hard for us to compete in this. Right. And Microsoft bought them, right? So, and then they're like, well, we don't want to go into this massive thing now. Let's just pull out of this, right? But they're apparently coming back with some YouTube thing. I don't know, whatever it is. But that essentially destroyed the idea.
Yeah.
The next part is Jim Ryan coming out and saying, cloud really isn't a thing until 2025 to 2035. We don't know when, and somewhere in there, right? And that's when it's going to maybe start to become something. So for the PI, right, he eliminated any potential there, right? Because it would have to be that within the next 2 years of this court hearing stuff, that Microsoft owning ABK would kill the cloud market. That's not an option, because outright from Sony, they're like, nope, it won't even start till 25, 3 years, 2 years from now. So and we don't even know when it starts, 2025 to 2035, somewhere in that range, right? We have no idea. And Google says it's not even a separate market. So both the CMA and the FTC just got their asses handed to them by Google, the companies whose cloud service was shut down because it couldn't compete in the market. So it like that was a big blow to them, whether they realize it or not. But that's just the way it is. And the judge brought up several times, but NVIDIA has a contract with Microsoft to put all their games in the cloud.
Yes.
So where's the issue? Right. And they couldn't really answer. It's like, but see, they chose to go to NVIDIA. They chose to pick the contract terms. The contract terms are take it for free. Well, what else do you want them to do? Pay them? Like, there's how much, what else could they do? Right. They even threw in a benefit to say, we'll give you cheaper access to Windows to run on your servers. We'll even do that. Right. the other question is like, well, how about Amazon or Google? It's like, FTC, the reason they went after those guys is because the European Commission told them, here are the ones you need to go talk to and make deals with, and then we'll approve your deal. You've had that opportunity for a year and a half. You could have gone and told them, hey, go talk to Amazon. And guess what Microsoft would do? Have a freaking 10-year agreement with Amazon. You could have done that anytime. You chose not to do it. Whose fault is that?
Didn't it come out that Sony waited like 3 months before they even responded to Xbox's?
Yes.
Yeah.
But ultimately, everybody else in the world has realized that you can't tell like Microsoft, the small minority console holder, that you can't compete against the majority console holders and say, well, that's a problem. Like, so that console SLC kind of died out, fizzled everywhere. Even the CMA kind of gave up on it because it just doesn't make sense, right? Here, they're a little bit better as far as market position. It's like 40, 60, 45, 55. But in the rest of the world, it's a joke. It's like 80, 20 at best, if not mostly like 5 to 95. So you can't really complain at that point.
One of the things that I did hear from people talking about this hearing was at one point the FTC came up and said something to the effect of, well, what if Microsoft owns, say, COD, and they start adding exclusive skins or weapons to the game? And I'm sitting there going, are you freaking kidding me? This is exactly what Sony has done forever. This is something that they do all the time. We can go back to Destiny 1, and I remember playing it there because the Xbox version didn't have certain strikes, didn't have certain weapons. And I was like, no, I want everything. So I would play there. I mean, this is exactly what they do.
They do that with COD 2 right now. You have more capability on PlayStation than you do on the other platforms. That includes PC, by the way. So the majority of players lose out.
That's the reason why I bring that up, Hargeet, is because that's how clueless the FTC seems. Anybody out there that states that, the FTC is doing their due diligence or whatever, obviously not. That there just speaks volumes that they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah, they've had no interest in actually doing
coming from me. I'm being very objective here. I'm not paying attention to the case because I can really care less about the case. Like it's just whatever at this point. But certain little things that I've heard is kind of eye opening. It's like, wow, is the FTC really that inept? Colt, I mean, what is the stuff you've heard and anything that piques your interest here?
I mean, there's just like big blanket statements that need to be made about the ABK thing. I've heard that. I don't know. I know Gaz doesn't trust certain people, and like I've heard some experts say that it's not down to a sliver or a shadow of a doubt. Like they have to have overwhelming evidence. The judge has to make a decision. Mm-hmm. And if that's true, what we've heard over the past week or so, Xbox should be able to get this deal to go through. But if I was like making closing statements for the ABK deal, I would say this. Here's the closing statement. Activision Blizzard and King are made up of 10 studios, some 10,000 employees. And here on the Xbox platform, I haven't rehearsed this. I'm just doing this if I was in front of a judge. And here on the Xbox platform, we want to be able to have those games available to our consumers. And we want to be able to put those on Game Pass, a platform we're building that give people a value proposition to play games at a better value and to grow our business and our brand.
Yeah.
But we also want to continue with the status quo and have most of the games that Activision Blizzard and King release available to everyone, even on PlayStation. And in fact, bring Call of Duty to the Nintendo Switch platform, which over the past 8 or 10 years has missed that platform. And we want those developers to be able to make that a reality on Nintendo Switch. It's a huge platform. And then I would say, and we're not doing this because we just love everyone. We want to do it because we want to make a lot of money. And we'll be able to sell Call of Duty to PlayStation, Xbox, PC, handheld, Rogue, and Steam Deck, and then on Nintendo platform, and thrive and build and be a competitive brand in this market. We aren't here to take away their games. We will have some games that Activision Blizzard will make. Like Blizzard's working on a game right now that we're going to decide, is that going to be an exclusive or not? And we'll decide when we get to that point. It's really early on in development. And maybe down the road, Infinity Ward is going to talk about something they're going to be working on. And we'll be deciding if that will be exclusive to the platform. But remember that when we say exclusive to the platform, we mean games that are on PC, anything that runs Windows and Game Pass and Xbox consoles and the cloud. So not only is our game exclusive only the Xbox platform, but it is available to almost everyone. Unless you're a PlayStation only fan and you only play on a PS5, then that's the only way you'll miss out. Because on Xbox, we want to provide something great for the consumer, value and competition and strong brands. And that's why they should pass the deal.
I feel like you should have like an American flag behind you as you were saying all that, and some music playing, some very patriotic music, because you look like you were trying to sell me something.
Look, I'll tell you, I'm trying to explain to you that.
No, I'm hearing you.
That's as objective as I can be. And of course, anybody could listen to me and say, Colt's just an Xbox fanboy, or as the new one that's come out this weekend, Colt's paid by Microsoft to say these things.
Oh, geez.
But I'm trying to shoehorn in there that I think Xbox should just say it right to the judge. Look, we only bought this studio because they wanted to be bought.
Be transparent.
And we can make a lot of money. Yeah. This is a money generating machine for us. And we've already signed agreements and swore under oath that will remain with the status quo on these huge games that make a big impact. Now, if Infinity Ward, this is outside the speech, if Infinity Ward decides to come up with a new IP, which I think they're planning on doing something outside of Call of Duty, like let me just pretend they're doing what Respawn does. They're making a Star Wars game, right? Maybe that's something where Xbox is like, that's definitely going to be exclusive to our platform because that's going to generate Game Pass subscribers. That's going to sell a few more consoles, and that's just going to generate a lot of money right here in this pocket. And just tell them we're doing this to make a lot of money, but we'll keep the status quo, and this will make us more competitive, and this will push competition because Sony is scared. PlayStation is threatened. They're frightened. They've done everything. They've walked in the room, knocked over your Lego build, trying to make this deal as horrible for Xbox as possible because it's going to harm their competition. But for competitors and for consumers, this is the competition that has been sorely needed while Xbox sat in the dugout for about 8 or 10 years. And thanks. Bye.
Yeah. I don't know if this is true, but I have to bring this up. Ninja Squirrel 30 in the chat said, when the judge asked the FTC and Sony, why don't you make PS Plus better to compete with Game Pass? He laughed. Did she really say that? Why don't they make PS Plus better to compete with Game Pass?
Asked Sony. I wasn't there for that interview, so I'm not sure.
Wow.
But I do remember her asking the FTC, right? Not so, I don't know about Sony, but FTC wouldn't having more in Game Pass push Sony to make PlayStation Plus better and offer more in their service? Isn't that a better thing for the consumer? Their answer was
that's hilarious.
That was the answer. That was it. They didn't have an answer because the reality is it is obviously better for the consumer to have.
Well, I think Jim has answered it on numerous occasions. Maybe even during the hearing. I didn't listen to his stuff, but I've seen him talk about how putting games in day and date is not sustainable for them. So it's not in the cards for them.
That's a lie. That's a lie. They have 30 million. PS Plus and what do they call it, Hargeet?
50, right?
PS
50 million total.
Premium. No. They're subscription based. Their stuff outside of PS Plus. I think they have about 30 million in PS Premium in the other tier. What's that?
I don't know. Is it that high?
That's what I heard yesterday. But I think they have well over 50 million that are on PS Plus. That's a lie. If they took the games, they're exclusive, their first party exclusive content, and they brought it into PS Premium, are the highest tier. And then they said, moving forward, when Spider-Man 2 comes out, that's included with your subscription, they'd be up to 50 million.
Yeah, but obviously
their premium service.
But obviously, their $70 price tag on each game is much more lucrative than putting them day and date in there.
It is not.
It is.
It is not.
It is.
It's not. Hargeet and I talked about this. We ran the numbers. If they brought in a certain amount, what was the number we talked about, Hargeet? If they got up to a certain number, they would be making way more money than they would by piecemealing games.
So if that were true, then it would be a no-brainer to do so. Why would they hold off? What would be the reasoning for Jim and company to say, no, we're not going to do day and date if it's not the money?
I don't want to act like that I know better financially than there's I think partially, and I want to give this to Hargeet because we've talked about this at length behind the scenes. I think partially the leadership in PlayStation and Sony in Japan is like, that's not a traditional way of doing business to push forward and look for a residual revenue stream, which is the best way to make your money. When people are being debited every month and they're happily staying with the service and it just keeps going and going and going, that's the best way to make money. But Hargeet, why aren't they doing it?
Yeah, I think it is just a business model issue, right? So look, once they get past a certain threshold, it's always better to have consistent revenue. If you want an example of this, Office is the perfect example. People might choose to buy Office, the latest version of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, or decide to skip it because they already own it, right? So they can say, well, I didn't get enough of a difference, so I'm just going to wait until three versions out. If you're on 365, that's consistent revenue no matter what. They don't care if you use the features or not. You have the latest version, and you will pay. That's it.
It's like your gym membership.
You're up, right? So that's it. So for them, that is fantastic, and it has accelerated their profits in that area massively, right? And it's just the way it goes. And why that happens is at some point there's an inflection of monthly recurring revenue being higher than your ability to sell a game. We always look at the games that sell a lot. Oh, God of War Ragnarok sold like 20 million copies. Cool. How much did Ben Studios game sell? They didn't even get a sequel. Right, that's a reality.
Yeah, unfortunately,
what were they up to? 1 million? Nothing. Right. So instead, you take that cost and say, I'm going to amortize that across my subscription service, and now I don't care. Right. It's basically I have to pay my employees. I have to pay for their.
So I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing. You're taking profit. You're taking the games that don't sell well, along with the games that do sell well, and you're averaging that out and saying, hey, if they were all in Game Pass, all encompassing in one place, because of your subscriber numbers that you have now and the potential of having a lot more if you do day and date, you'll be making a ton of money. I could see that because I do feel that Sony, if they were to do day and date, they would get so many more people on that service. Right. I would join for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, let me ask you this, Fonz. What would the growth of their new PS Plus model be compared to Game Pass if they went day and date?
Honestly, I think it would jump up. We're talking right away. I could see them getting, the first week, I could see them getting millions of subs.
I would join it too.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing for me is I'm not on PS5 anymore. I'd be on PC, right? But so I don't know if they're planning to do anything there. That would be cool. But if not, then whatever. I would just buy it, on the games. But that's the thing. You don't forego that. There will still be people who buy the game. How many people bought the collector's edition of Starfield? It's available to you. You can pay $10 on PC and play it there. You can pay $11 now on Xbox and play it there. It's available to you, but they don't care. People are buying the freaking thing all over the place because they want like all the stuff that comes with it, and they want the early access. Hell, I paid for early access already. They already have money from me, even though I have the game. Like it doesn't matter. I wanted the early access, right? So there's always ways to monetize. There's always ways to make more money, but it certainly is viable, and it's up to them to make the difference.
Like Xbox does. If you buy the deluxe version, if you have Game Pass, you spend the extra $30 and you get early access.
They did that with Let me say something. I got to say something. Nivik in the chat says Bobby Kotick said Game Pass is a no-no, and he was very outspoken about how he doesn't think Game Pass would work in their model. But here's the funny thing about Bobby. Bobby should know about the money, right? Every year he basically makes all of his money off of Call of Duty, which is a $170 payment. If he had his audience paying $10 a month to play Call of Duty and all of the things that come with it, how much would he make a year? Double, almost double, and
they have a subscription service for one game, right? So they already know what.
Well, that's the thing about the majority of Call of Duty fans, the diehards, right? The majority of the diehard Call of Duty fans, they play that game all the way until November, and they finally drop it when the new one comes out, and then they start playing the new Call of Duty. And I have so many friends that's what they do. They don't play any other game. And Bobby's like, no, we want to sell it to him for 70. I'm like, you can sell it to him all year because
the thing goes away from his purview if Microsoft buys them. But here's the thing.
Yes.
All of this is a potential headache for some of the publishers, right? If you're used to just pulling in profits, but that's the point of of anybody in the industry pushing the industry to say we're going to give more value to the customer, right? So yes, there might be less for you as a given publisher, but that's what happens, right? At some point you have to compete in the world and say, all right, well, somebody came in like Netflix and said, hey, we're going to just change the way this goes, right? And you can either adapt or not. Blockbuster didn't, they're gone, right? Most of the content providers said, well, crap, that worked. So it was either do deals with Netflix or create your own. And most of them said, do deals with Netflix and create my own, right? That's what they've been doing, right? And that's how it is, right? And now we have competition of many different subscription services, right? That's how it goes. Somebody comes in and changes the model, right? There's no specific reason that you have to have the same model permanently. People who are entrenched in it, though, hate it when you bring change to their model, right? Because for Bobby, it's great. I've got my recurring annual thing that gives me lots and lots of money on mobile and on consoles and on PC. So why would I want to break that? I get it, but that doesn't matter. Things will always change. That's the point of an open market. Things will always change. Cloud could be a potential thing. To me, that's baloney. I think it's mobile that's going to disrupt the crap out of this. Right, the Rogue Ally is already like almost a PS5 in your hands. What that's going to be in 5 years, I don't even want to know. Right, so but why wouldn't that disrupt the market, right? And if you had that device and you could plop it down in a dock like the Switch, and suddenly you've got a full PC's capability running a Xbox-like UI or even a Sony PlayStation-like UI, dude, it's just going to be crazy. That why wouldn't you go for that, right? So somebody could come up with that kind of thing, and suddenly some third party that you weren't thinking about suddenly disrupted the whole market, right? That happens. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. Game Pass is a disruptor. It is. And you have to adapt to it. Figure out how you want to be part of it. Ubisoft did with Ubisoft Plus. EA did with EA Play. Others are doing the same thing. It's up to you to decide whether you want to go with it or go kicking and screaming, because eventually you're going to go there, right? That's just the way it is.
Interesting. Now, something else that came out of this hearing, I'm not sure if these words were said exactly, but something to the effect of these games being devalued in Game Pass. What was said about that? Game Pass is devaluing games.
I don't know.
I think Jim Ryan basically said that.
Oh, that was like a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Publishers that the publishers unanimously.
Okay, the value destructive statement.
Value destructive. That's what it was.
Yeah. So if that was just his. So he probably talks to some of the people in the industry, right? And he said all of the publishers universally, these were his words.
Yeah, universally.
Hate Game Pass.
Yeah.
And like,
that's what it was.
That can't be true, because there's a publisher named Xbox Game Studios, and I don't hear them saying Game Pass sucks. So
no, not only that. There was a publisher called Square Enix that had a game that started out on Game Pass, which was Outriders.
Outriders. Yep. they loved it. They were very happy with that.
Yes.
So I don't know. And then
they were more happy than Square was.
Yes, they were.
Well,
man.
so here's and they just signed a couple of new publishers, 11 Studios, and what was the other one? Name is not Paradox. No, there was another one that they signed 2 more publishers to put their games onto Game Pass. It's like, well, that obviously wasn't true, and several of the publishers have actually come out and said, "Hold your horses, we don't agree with that." And if that were the case, why would EA have a subscription service? They're like the biggest publisher, right? Why would they have a subscription? They have one, and they're happy with it. They don't care. It's part of Game Pass, for Pete's sake, right? So, and then Ubisoft is doing the same thing, and they put theirs in PS Plus. So, what's the issue here? Like, if that were the case, why do you have a subscription service of your own, and Ubisoft is putting their games in it? What's value destructive there? You're doing this, so why did Ubisoft sign up? Did you just pay them gobs of money? Is that it? Like, what? You're contradicting yourself.
I think you should have said value disruptive, not destructive. Disruptive.
That is a better thing.
Because that is what it is.
Yeah. It is a different model.
Absolutely what it is.
It's a different model. It means that you have to earn your, your audience. There was the developer of like Inside or whatever that had Somerville, right? Who said, I don't like the model because it means I have to earn your business, because it used to be I could just give you a trailer and hook you and you have to buy my game. Whether you got anything out of it or not, I did my piece, you bought my game. And it's like, well, no, now you have to earn your keep, right? So if somebody's going to download your game, it's got to be worth it for them to continue to play. And
Yes.
I think that's awesome for gamers. I think that's great because it means we're a part of the equation, right? That, hey, you can't just put crap out there. You got to earn my business. You've got to earn my time. But it's just like on anything on Netflix, right? If you go there, or Disney Plus, right? It's like, I start a show, this ain't for me. I'm out, right? So
hey, I can understand if a developer or a publisher says, I don't like Game Pass, because they hear that people go in there and they're figuring, oh, I wonder how much money they get. Or if there's a developer or publisher that says, we went to Game Pass and they offered us this amount of money, and we thought, I don't know about that. And so we told Xbox no, and we went ahead and sold our game. Now, what we don't know, if there's a developer called, Shooby-Doo Studios, and they put out a game and it's a certain amount, and they're like, well, we were offered Game Pass, but we took it. We didn't take it. Well, how much money did you make? Well, we made this much. And like, you think you would have made more off that deal? Like, yeah, maybe. But we don't know that. But the funny thing is, all the hundreds and hundreds of studios that have put their game in Game Pass went there only because Xbox says, how about this? How much this money? Well, how about this amount of money? Do you want to be in Game Pass? And they're like, yes. And then they're happy with that. And Jim Ryan says it unanimously. The people that I've talked to, the publishers, say that they don't like Game Pass, and it's like, did you talk to just your own publishers or the people you money at?
Exactly. I'm going to get to all this super chats.
That's normal stuff. I'll let you. I just want to say, normal for people to make a hyperbolic statement like that. Like they always say, so and so always says that, or so and so always does that, because they heard from somebody that person did that 3 times. And I think that's how Jim Ryan approached that. He's like, I'll just tell them everybody I've talked to, because I talked to 5 people.
You got to do that in your Jim Ryan voice.
Yeah. I mean, here's an interesting example of that is, Colt, while we were out there at fake E3, whatever, new E3, Tomasala was out there
with Brisket for the Biscuit. Yes,
with Brisket. Tomasala was out there, trying to promote his new game, right? So if you don't know who he is, he made The Falconeer, which was one of those launch games on Xbox. It went to Game Pass, and
wasn't that the 8K game?
The 8K, I don't know. They might have done 8K. I'm not sure.
I don't know, but it was a little tiny.
I think it was actually.
Yeah, it's an indie game, right? He's an indie developer. He's one guy. He makes the games, and he has some like teams that help him with like the music and whatnot, right? But he's the one who makes the games. He has a new game. He was there to promote that, to see if he could get it into Game Pass. And why would he do that if he didn't like Game Pass? So obviously there's a market there, right? So
of course.
I mean, supposedly there's a backlog of people who want to get in who can't, right? There's supposedly people who like have to just wait to actually be able to get into Game Pass, because they're like, we're not going to expand this to 10,000 games, right? They want to have it be curated and reasonable so that you can find stuff that you want and not be inundated, right? So, but yeah, it's an interesting thing. I don't know. I like your description. It's value disruptive. It will change things. Exactly. You have to think about it and say, well, what is the contract terms I want to have to make it so that my game does well enough, right?
Yep.
It's disruptive.
That's the way I view it anyway. When I heard somebody say that's what he said, I said maybe he meant disruptive, because destructive, I don't see it destroying the value of these games personally. And to that effect too, as a consumer, I could care less, to be honest. Like, I'm just in it for what kind of value that I'm getting, and that's pretty much it for me. But another thing that I heard come out of this hearing was something about them going after these studios, and it seemed kind of odd, because it seemed like when they bought Bethesda, it was right after PlayStation did a couple of deals for exclusive games from Bethesda. They bought them. And then we see an internal email that came out and said that they were looking at buying Square Enix as well. And I'm like, are they going after like the publishing arm of these companies that they're doing deals with and just trying to one up the game here? Because that's
I've been saying this for a while, that Microsoft should target Square Enix and then Sega, right? Those are the two that I've been saying they should go after next.
Yeah, and Sega as well.
And the reason I was saying that is Square has had an issue with financing, right? And Game Pass eliminates that problem, right? So they can keep making all the games they want, just go into Game Pass. And I'm happy with them staying multi-plat. I don't think it matters, right? Game Pass is the play. it will increase their mind share in that country, right? To start pushing into Japan and then across Asia to say, hey, like these games are available in a subscription service if you want to play it that way. If not, go play it where you're happy. We're okay with that, right? So I think that was a good play for them. And apparently that broke down because of Starfield, right? So if Microsoft had to lose Final Fantasy, that's one thing. If they had to lose Starfield, they're like, we can't afford to do that, right? Because it's a Western market game. It's going to be a very big hit to lose a Bethesda Game Studios game on the least performing platform, at least not in performance, in like a power performance, in sales performance, right? They just aren't there. And if they lost that game, it would just be a huge hit, right? So like, and that's what pulled them into them. They were looking at both of them and saying, well, which one's the better fit? Right. And this is, by the way, when they had Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal and all that. So they had all the Western studios. Right. So they were looking at all that and like, OK, cool, this or this. But when Starfield came up, they're like, yeah, that just does it. We can't lose Starfield. Right. They already did Deathloop. They already did Ghostwire. There's nothing stopping them from doing Starfield. We're buying Bethesda. We're going to stop that right there. Right.
Yeah.
So,
because there was definite rumors that Sony was going to money hat Starfield.
It's not rumors. I mean, Phil said it, right? So, like,
that's what was going to happen. Yeah.
There's got to be some validity when Phil's saying that, right? So I got to believe that was on the table. It was going to happen.
So it just seems like instead of buying the milk, they bought the cow, and that's what they're looking to do.
I mean,
I used that analogy the other day.
Right? Go ahead, Colt. Sorry.
No, I used the buying the milk instead of buying the cow thing when I was talking about Starfield. And it was like a tweet I wrote up and I was like, I'm not going to do it. It's going to make people too mad because it's not a good thing to say that Xbox would go buy the cow. But that's what PlayStation's been
facts.
doing.
It's what happened.
That is what they did, right? And
I mean,
the problem for Microsoft in that is if they wanted to do the same thing, they'd either have to pay to say, don't make it exclusive, right? Which is just a waste of money on their end. Or if they wanted to make it exclusive, they have to pay much more because their market share's lower, right? So they're going to take away sales from the market leader. That's not good for Bethesda at that point, right? So they're going to expect more money to do that exclusive deal, right? It might be time and a half, twice as much, right, for them to secure the same thing. And this has always been their headache, right? And this is why they have this like, well, okay, if I can't get the game, then I'm just going to buy the damn publisher. Even if it means I have to make some of the games, multi-plat, I don't care. At least I don't lose the bloody game to PlayStation, right? So that's been their strategy, right? And it is what it is. Some of the games there are going to be exclusive. I think after they bought them, they're like, no, we're just making everything exclusive.
I'm definitely glad they went after Bethesda instead of Square Enix. Look, I like Final Fantasy, but at the same time, most of their games are just ass.
Would you have liked Crystal Dynamics? Would you have liked Eidos? So Deus Ex and
well, that's because look, I mean, Square Enix got rid of all those studios
after it all fell apart.
Yeah, after it all fell apart. But I yes, I would have liked the other developers, the other studios that they had. But Square Enix themselves, man, I'm just not a big fan.
Yeah, it's a tough place for them to be right now. So obviously, what we've seen over the last few years, where their relationship has frayed, shall we say, seems to be because of this, right? They were in negotiations. This was going to be like a trigger they pull, and then the Starfield thing happened, and so it went that direction. And I don't know what the relationship is anymore with Square. Maybe they're working that back out. I don't know if they don't just still go for it. Maybe they do try to buy them. But the next one they have on the list is now Sega, and you saw the tweet from Sarah Bond standing in front of the Sega building. Gee, hint, hint, wink, wink. What's going on here?
What was that all about? Yeah, sure. You're just enjoying. Didn't she have a caption saying like, "Oh, London's great" or something? Or
like she was heading back home.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's kind of obvious.
Yeah,
I mean,
but that was not a location that's like very.
I don't know if that's coming, but the leadership and the team at Xbox is known for probably 4 or 5 years that they've wanted to buy Sega like in earnest, and we've been hearing about those rumors a long time. I remember back when RDX was really new, we talked about Sega being a prospect in the panel, and I think that was what a joke we had going with the other panel member who did a video about the Pachinko machines and stuff like that. But that might have been Konami. I can't remember, but yeah, we've been talking about Sega for a while. Yeah, it was both of them. Yeah, it was. I don't know. It's so funny. we don't know for sure what Xbox can buy or not if they don't get this deal.
Yeah.
Or if they
what
do,
happens?
if they're like, okay, we got to cool the jets on the spending for a little bit. But
they definitely. I mean, even if it goes through, I'm thinking to myself, are they going to allow to buy another big publisher even?
So I think in the case of Sega or Square, yes, I think they will. And the reason is simply they've already been laying the groundwork of saying we have 98 to 2% market share in Japan, right? Sony has 98, we have 2%, and we need to compete. And that's going to come up over and over again, right? When the government gets involved, and they already have, they've already made those, communications back all the way to Japan, right? So they've already set the groundwork. They're going to pick somebody up over there, right? And it just makes sense, right? They have like zero mind share there. It's just a fact, right? They are nothing.
Yeah.
In that. If you put Nintendo back in, which is actually the leader in Japan, their market share is so pathetic, you might as well just not mention them, right? It's just not like it's some no-name brand cola from a two-store market, like supermarket, versus Coca-Cola. They're just not even in the mind share, right? So they need to change that. And the reason they need to change that, I think Phil was mentioning that, is the developers in that country just skip Xbox because they don't even know it's really there, right? When you go into your game store, you don't even see it. So you're like, don't even think about it, right?
Yep.
Whereas if you go to a store and you're like, oh, this is a pretty prominent platform, I should put my game here too, right? It just opens up that situation for them. And that's what they need to change, right? And they're like, well, if we have to do that, you have to make big moves. That's the only way it's going to work. They have to make big moves. I think this is going to be one of the ones they do. It comes down to the regulatory environment we're in. That's a fact. It's a problem.
Yep.
But I don't know if this one wouldn't just go through because of the fact that their market share in that country is just so abysmal that there's just nothing you can really say, right? What regulator is going to come in and say, you can't be in Japan. You have a 2% market share. Okay. Well, okay, maybe you can. Like, what are you really going to say? What's the downside here? They're going to put in stipulations. We'll still keep it multi-plat, but we need to have some mind share. Somebody has to think about us, right? That's just the way it is.
For sure. For sure. So Colt, what is, out of everything you've heard, what has been the most eye-opening thing for you during this hearing?
It's been not a surprise, but to hear Xbox continually make themselves look like, they've never been able to make any money, or they've never had any games.
Poor us, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's been eye-opening to see PlayStation act like the victim. That was really eye-opening. And then, of course, the eye-opening part would be the CMA and the FTC pushing so hard to get a victory over big tech. And when you have somebody like Hoag's Law, who's like, I'm still 50-50 of the single pass, but when you look at what's been presented and how Judge Corley has been, accepting of all of the sides of the argument and like which ways in different directions. Like, it seems like, as Hargeet says, 95% has been like in Xbox's favor, is kind of what Hargeet was implying. Like, I listened to a lot of it. I listened to probably half of the FTC hearings, and it just sounds like Xbox is in a really good situation where they can just go ahead. But I'll never discount the possibility of Xbox getting totally screwed over by, a big government initiative to stop this massive merger. But when you take a step back and go, what is Activision, Blizzard, and King in the grand scheme of all of the publishers and all the studios and all of the games that everybody plays? Like, right, Diablo and Call of Duty are really massive, right? But how is that going to hurt anything? Mm-hmm. Especially when I remind people, the next Diablo game, if you're ever worried about Diablo 5 being an exclusive, you have to remember that Diablo 5 probably comes out in 2035.
Wow.
I mean, I don't even know, right? It's going to be a long time. And there's no Overwatch 3. There's no Overwatch 3. It's just Call of Duty. And like, what else does ABK make? Like I talked earlier in the show. So like, what is going to be hurt by this? And the judge should really just look back and say, wow, when I look at this, and somebody was giving me crap in the chat saying it looks like that I was, just capping or whatever when I gave my speech. But the judge should be able to look back and say, what's the worst that's going to happen? Xbox is going to make more money. As they're going to make more money than they've made since the 360 days, or they're going to make more money than ever before. That's the worst thing. What are they going to do with that money? Well, guess what? if they do something big, we get to look at it first and say, can you do this or not? Like, there really is no downside. Here's my last closing statement for that. If Xbox buys something, keeps it to themselves, almost everybody gets it. Remember I said that earlier? Like, if PlayStation wants to money hat something, even if they just reach out and say, we don't own you, we don't own the game, but this is exclusive to PlayStation, Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it screws.
Then no one can play it except a PS5 owner. Until the Square Enix finally says, now can we make the PC version? Yeah, you can make the PC version.
I think that's my problem with this whole hearing for me, or everything I've heard. The FTC is supposed to be there for us, the consumers, right? And I just don't understand why they seem to have an argument for another corporation, especially an outside corporation. When I say outside the U.S., it makes literally no sense for the FTC to be doing this. Do you feel that way, Hargeet? Like, it just seems kind of an odd position for them to take.
It would be in the case that they were actually doing this based on an actual problem in the market, right? If there was a thing that Microsoft could do that could totally destroy the potential for Sony to compete, fair enough. Then you do have to say this is what you're going to do, and it's going to hurt Sony.
In this case, in the end, it trickles down to the consumer, right? But exactly, I want to ask you this: less
competition, right? So, yeah. But yeah,
Go ahead. Finish your statement, and I'll ask.
Yeah. So as far as like what I would see as the reason they did that, and I think I talked about it at the beginning, was they needed anything to latch onto, and they just took whoever came up with complaints. And Sony screamed the loudest. They just said, "This is terrible. It's going to kill our entire industry, and it's going to kill Sony." Right? Okay, cool.
They're the only one that screamed.
Yeah, I mean, well, technically, I guess Google minorly screamed, and then NVIDIA, they kind of screamed as well.
Yeah.
But NVIDIA got a deal from Microsoft, and like, oh, we're happy, good, we're done. We don't need anything else. We're good. We're good with the deal. Go for it, because we get games, right? We want those games, so please do the deal so we can get those games. Cool. Google kind of pulled themselves out of it because Stadia failed, which happened because of their own problems. Which, by the way, they admitted it happened because of content, not because of xCloud. The guy that was there said xCloud didn't even exist when we were going into the market. So that was definitely not an issue, and it was really content, AAA content.
Yeah.
Putting that aside, so I think that is the main thing is they were just looking for anything to latch onto. Because again, if they did the analysis like the EC did, right? They said, let's look at what this means. Yes, it's a big number, but what does it actually mean in the market, right? So and then like, okay, for the console, I don't see it, right? We have 85-15 is the market share differential for Sony to Xbox in our EU territory. That's just ridiculous. We're not going to go with Sony telling us that, oh no, they're going to lose some market share. That's only a good thing for our consumers, right? So that went away. The only thing they were worried about was like potentially the cloud could be something. Go make deals with these companies and we'll be happy. Let's go, right? That's what the FTC should have done. They didn't do that, right? And both the CMA and FTC kind of played that same kind of not so well functioning way. They basically had in their head, we're going to block this, right? And wanted to say, how do I do that, right?
Yeah.
So that's why they did this, right? Because otherwise, there is nothing here, right? They're bringing to a judge who's just complaining, like, what are you telling me? I don't have anything on your side. Tell me what you want, right? Because you haven't proven a case to me. I'll put so you asked the question of what was surprising to me.
Yeah.
The surprising thing is Matt Booty coming out with those emails, actually having a freaking backbone, saying, yo, no, that's not going to happen. Right? No, we're not doing that. Right? Like, this is freaking awesome. Like, we can outspend Sony and like into oblivion. Yes, please do that. That's the whole point.
Okay, so I did see. I don't know his exact wording, but I saw something on Twitter from a lot of Sony guys really upset by his statement, basically to the effect of like killing off Sony or something. But the way I read, because I read the email, the way I read it is, as you know, it's just like a competitive nature type of thing. It's like
we have the opportunity to do that, right?
Yeah,
we're not going to do that,
but we can do something to really, hurt them, right?
Yeah.
But that's exactly what Sony does too. I mean, this is the competitive nature in all of us, and in corporations, it's no different. This is what they have to do. It's a bloodthirsty freaking industry. They're going after our dollars. Dollar signs mean everything to them. They're going to do what they have to do. Again, I go back to the analogy. They bought the cow instead of the milk. Somebody in the chat said something about Reforge Gaming, saying that what about PlayStation consumers? To that, I would say, what about Spider-Man fans or Final Fantasy fans on Xbox?
Yeah,
okay, shut up.
You're
and
not
Star
a
Wars fans.
PlayStation consumer. You're a video game consumer.
Oh, sorry.
Right?
I got to bounce around and say, what about Star? You know, all these fans of Spider-Man on Xbox. What about them? What about them? Okay, there
I mean, all of it is so Zelda. Zelda is on one platform. Is that killing gaming? No. Look, the idea is if you want to play something, you will find it on the market, right? As long as you have access in the market and there's enough competition, there's an equivalent to Zelda from another player.
How about this, Hargeet? How about this? This is something that Sony guys have told me for years. Okay, not me personally, but what I've seen them tell Xbox guys: buy a PlayStation. So. Buy an Xbox.
In the end, that is not the end of the world.
Buy a
right?
PC.
If you have to buy a box, you have to buy a box. That's the way it is, right?
I buy all of them for that reason alone.
Like there was the tape versus 8-track. There was the CD versus the tape. There was like Laserdisc versus VHS or Beta, right? Again, you could buy the wrong box and not have the content, right? The content can go where it wants to, and that's just that. You deal with it, right? Like as far as the market, the point is that you have equivalents, right? So Call of Duty is not an input that is required for every single computing gaming device for them to thrive. That is disproven. Even Steam didn't have Call of Duty for a while, and Steam numbers went up, not down, up, right? They still gained market share. They still made more money. It's not required. It's one bloody game, right? It's big. But I can point out other ones, say Roblox, that was up to $100 billion in value for one game. That's bigger than ABK, all of it. So that's a reality you just have to deal with. There are games that are going to come and go. Fortnite is a massive
Minecraft is bigger, and it's on PlayStation.
Right? And so you can't point to any given game and say, just because this one game is taken away, because look, Activision could just say, we're kind of done with Call of Duty, and we're going to move on. That can happen. And in that world, are you telling me gaming collapses? It's a baloney story. There's just nothing there, right? You can take the most, lucrative, music star today and say, well, they just decided to retire. Does that kill the music industry? Come on, right? The whole thing is just baloney. There's just no end to this, right? You have to let things go the way they are, and every game should have an equivalent somewhere else. If it does, you're good. It doesn't matter, right? So if you don't want to play, you can't have Call of Duty. Well, you just bought Destiny, right? Go play Destiny. How many PlayStation players are playing it? Go play Destiny. It's your game. Go play it, right? Enjoy that. Right? Why are you
play some games?
How many PlayStation guys are playing it? Well, they're playing Twitter a lot.
That's the thing, right? And it's like, forget that. Go play the games. You just got a release. Final Fantasy 16 just came on your console. Go play the game. It's like 100+ hour game. Go play the game. Why are you here on Twitter?
Yeah. No, I got to give a shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you for being here, guys. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. I've got almost 500 people here. I really, I think this is the most I've had on a live show. So I really appreciate you guys being here. And I do have all the supers, guys. I'm going to get through some of them now because a lot of people are like, you missed my super. You missed my super. And I hate missing super chats. Got one here from Brigadier's Blue. Every week he gives me a super chat, throws me a 5. And this time he's running late, he says, but he's here as per usual, staying, keep up the amazing. Okay. He's staying this time. Okay. Keep up the amazing work. I'll have to catch the whole show later. Okay. Well, I guess he's not staying. Can't wait to hear from you, Colt and Hargeet. Yes, we can't wait to give you all the news you're going to hear about, or not even news. What everybody else is talking about right now, the ABK deal, the FTC, the Microsoft hearing. We're talking about that right now. Pragmatic Eagle, what's up, brother? Thank you for the super chat here. He says, shout out to Fonz, the most level-headed podcaster on the planet. I appreciate that. Not all the time. Not all the time. I can be pretty I'm very opinionated, that's for sure. Shout out to Hargeet and Colt as well. Great to see you gentlemen doing your thing. It's great to see you here as well, man. Biff Rinaldi, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, Colt, have you tried Mountain Dew Voltage? It's fire. Have you tried it, Colt?
I think I have. I'm trying to remember which one that is. Hold on.
It's a blue one.
No. Yeah, it tastes like Sour Patch Kids to me. I can't drink very much of it, but yeah, it's intense.
I never tried it because they didn't have a zero version of that one. Because I don't do sugar anymore. No sugar, kids. Not for me. Red Wolf, welcome. Thank you for the super chat, brother. Red Wolf, this is the same guy that's in party chats with us sometimes, right, Colt?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's the one that does he can do the impressions of everybody who podcasts. He's freaking hilarious.
Freaking hilarious, this guy. He says, hey, chat, hit the ding-dang like button. And you know what? He's probably saying it in an Australian voice, too. Does a great Aussie voice. He does a great Aussie voice, though.
Oh, yeah, he does.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Some good voices.
Yo, Donnie Casada, what's up, man? Thank you for the $5 super chat. He says, shout out to y'all and Jim lying, dance moves, crying, video testifying, xCloud denying, Europe flying, third-party exclusive deal buying, Ryan.
Nice.
Video testifying.
I love it.
That's funny.
I love it. That's great. Risk it for the biscuit celebrates 5 months of membership, and no, he didn't need to join a $12.99 VIP or more. No, but he did join the channel. Thank you very much, brother. I appreciate you. He says they don't need to make Spider-Man 2 into PS Plus, but they need to start bringing some first-party day and date. They have a big lead. They don't have to go all in, toe in, he says. So
yeah,
no, I can definitely see that. But like Hargeet was explaining earlier, it makes a lot of sense in how many subscriptions they already have and how many they will generate as soon as they go day and date. I'm sure that they'll get a lot. They would get tons. Mark from the Just Gaming podcast says, day and date reduces quality of games. It's 100% about the money. Also, if it's not in the service, makes it harder to resell remade games, remakes for their games.
Well, I don't know if day and date reduces quality of games. I'm not sure how it would.
I think he's being sarcastic. He's being sarcastic. Anyways, risk it for the biscuit. Thank you very much for the $8 super chat. That's like $1 million over there in Aussie money, right? That's it's at least $400. Yeah, Kanga dollars. Yeah, that's how much it is. Like 400 Kanga dollars.
Risk it says he tries to trick his American friends and say we call our money dollary dues. Yeah, that was funny.
You might as well. He says there's not only one way to run a submodel. PlayStation can pick and choose between the games. If the deal goes through, it would be smart to make a big move. Yeah, it would be smart on their part. Yeah. Again, I think one of their big moves will be a mid-gen refresh. I think they're going to pull that out to try to get that power narrative back, and then just push more games out that are coming that look like they could play on last gen.
These consoles
and give them 120 frames.
Need it.
I don't know.
They're weak.
But yeah,
I mean, their market decision is going to be something different, though, right? They're trying to transition to these live service games, which is why their last show was terrible. They did have a bunch of games, but they were all like games like, what is this?
I think the biggest problem, to your point, Colt, about the consoles being weak is that these consoles are basically 2018, 2019, not generation, but that's about the year that they were good, I guess, decent consoles, right?
Yeah.
And then it took 3+ years or 2+ years to actually get any next gen games going. And once they came out and they're not cross gen and they're pushing all these features, these developers are, it just seems like, yeah, it's not enough.
We're already 2 generations or 2 families forward on the GPUs. We're in the 40 series on NVIDIA's GPUs, and so
about to be 50 something.
Yeah, the 2070 Super, which is what the Series X and PS5 is like can feel pretty ancient, but man, I don't know. It's whatever. It's not a tech show.
We've already got into that. Screen Name, thank you very much for the $5 super chat. He says, Yo, Fonz, I don't always agree with all of your takes, but it's good to have you in the community, bro. Also, what's up, Colt and Hargeet? Xbox is number 1 now.
I
number
wish.
1 in what? That's
in value.
Number one in value. I'll give it that. Ultraman, thank you very much for the super chat. He says, first time catching you live, Fonz, Colt, and Hargeet. Enjoy watching you guys too. I appreciate that, Ultraman. Really
Look at how relaxed he looks in that picture. I want to feel like Ultraman does every day. I want to just feel relaxed and just enjoying life.
There's a good looking guy, unlike that other picture with that weirdo that pops up sometimes, and but yeah, thank you very much, Ultraman. Appreciate you. Oh, no, we're not going to read that again. Anyways, that is the super chats I have right now.
Awesome.
But yeah, thank you very much, guys. I appreciate you. I do save all the super chats. I put them away and I bring them back. But the conversation was flowing so well. I hate to break up conversation sometimes. I watch a lot of podcasts or listen to them. And what I notice a lot of people do is as soon as they get a super chat, they break the conversation and then they go to the super chat. And it's like, then it's a totally different topic or a different thing and it gets thrown off. And yeah, I don't like that. I want to kind of keep the conversation flowing on this show. And I think at the time, Hargeet had some great stuff he was pointing out. So appreciate you guys, though. You guys are awesome. Ultraman said he's just chilling playing his Xbox when he took that pick.
Nice. Love it.
Love it. Dude, that's how relaxed you can be because there are no games on the Xbox. So, no, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, of course. I hate that narrative. Always hated it. There's plenty to play on Xbox, especially if you have Game Pass. Well, you've played just about every Xbox game.
That's I've played just about everything, and then
and you refuse to play some games.
There's a couple games that just didn't do it for me this summer. So whatever.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy.
I know.
But you're not playing Final Fantasy. I'm having a good time with Final Fantasy.
I actually might. I'm really close. I'm really close to picking it up.
I gotta rephrase that. I'm having a great time watching that movie. It's really good. I'm not
gonna buy it.
It's really good. The story is good. If you don't like the story in Final Fantasy 16, I will say this. If you're not hip to watching a lot of cutscenes and you're not into the story, don't bother buying it.
I'm just afraid that I'll get into the story and I'll be going, like rolling my eyes at the heavy-handed, over-dramatic, and then I'll be stuck with, 75% cutscenes. And I'm like, but I don't care about this story.
Mark, you had to do it. He says, Reforge is a visionary. Mic drop.
Mic drop.
Facts. He is.
Well, I'll tell you what. He's a great hustler. He does his thing. I can't knock his hustle.
You know what I don't? I'm not going to call out specific people.
It's whatever.
Obviously, I never will.
It's
but
whatever.
I don't like people who talk a lot about the Xbox platform. And obviously, like from the very first moments until their entire podcast is done, they know nothing about the economy and the market of what Xbox is doing. They don't know their trajectory. They don't know the business model. They haven't listened to what the leadership have said. They haven't watched what games are being worked on, what's coming, how those games have been received, how many millions of players are playing some of the games that they think are trash and dead. And it's a problem. And I think they're all just AI constructs and they're just bots and they're paid to be there.
No, it's somebody who has he's got the gift of gab. He can talk a lot. He doesn't always say things that are. I don't want to get into.
Let me say something. I
don't want to get into it.
This is going to come off disingenuous, but it's not. I really like Colin Moriarty. He's really smart. He's very sharp, and he knows the business. He knows all about what's going on with PlayStation. He knows all about the games. But when he talks about Xbox, it's so strikingly apparent that he doesn't understand and hasn't paid attention to where they're at, where they're coming from, what's happened in the past, where they're going. And I try to be respectful, and I think you're right. Sometimes I'll quote tweet them, but I'm just like, this is what they're doing. And like people have to remember, like for 8-10 years, Xbox had no funding from Microsoft. And when he talks about, and this should be part of your show, Fonz, when he talks about big bad Microsoft, like why should we give them all this money when they're so bad at it? But their first party offering for the entirety of Xbox's career of 20 some years has been stellar. It's their third party crap that has not landed. And then they spent almost the entire Xbox One generation with no money, no backing from Microsoft, and left to die.
You say their first party has been stellar.
I love it.
But their first party games are subjective, right? I don't necessarily see in all their first
subjective.
party as being, stellar, but at the same time, I understand what you're saying. If you take a Metacritic or an Open Critic aggregate, it's kind of the same numbers as PlayStation, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I get that much. But they are seriously lacking in certain areas with first party.
Yes, and that's why they need to fill those holes so they can create the things. Like they're seriously
But you
lacking
cut me
in
off.
the
I didn't
big,
finish.
epic. Yeah,
But I didn't finish.
Go ahead.
But there are holes on the PlayStation side as well.
Yes.
Yeah. I know.
So it kind of evens out as well. I mean, I like the basic, third person action adventure game that Sony puts out. I love those types of games, right? But not everybody does. There's a lot of people out there who want more co-op, who want more multiplayer, and they're not getting those experiences over there. So, I mean, you can look at either side and say, they don't have no games or they don't have no games based on what you like and what you don't like.
Of course. Yep.
And because I tell you right now, I guarantee there's at least 4 people here in my chat right now that do not like Sony games. Guaranteed. Like, not at all. Not even one. They just don't care for Sony games. And it's just, it's not, it doesn't even necessarily have to do with being a bot or a pony or whatever. You don't have to be a fanboy to like certain things or dislike certain things. I myself will never consider myself a fanboy of either console or whatever. I've always bought every console. That's just the way I am. And I'm serious when I tell you I'm very objective on all this stuff. I don't care about these corporations. I don't. All I care about is them providing me games, good games. That's it. I could care less. So yes, I guess you could say that I do care about the corporation to an extent in that they stick around and give me more content, but that's it. That's it's not about, oh my God, I'm beholden to this box or that box. I could care less where I play.
Yeah.
As long as I'm playing a good game. That's it. That's it.
And there really isn't much difference between PlayStation's home studios building a game and PlayStation partnering with another studio to make a game. Like what you're doing is you're providing a great game for your customer. And people always act like, oh, they can't make great games or they can't manage this. And Xbox has blatantly mishandled the initiative in 343. The rest of their studios are doing fantastic. Like they're doing great work and they're making games. Like PlayStation doesn't have a game where they're still, after years of the game being released, they've had 30 million people playing the game. Like that doesn't happen where they have a buildup of people play the game for so long and it continues to be supported. They'll do that in the future. And Xbox will have their big epic masterpiece game that they haven't had in a while. And
so what do you think is going to be their next masterpiece over there at Xbox?
Well, I thought it was going to be Hellblade 2, but
it's Starfield.
Come on. Yes.
Yeah, it's Starfield.
Yes.
Starfield.
Come on.
But Fonz and I are looking at like that. Fonz and I are looking at that next third-person open-world action adventure game, like something different
I want
from
something,
Starfield.
I do want that action adventure type of game. Yes, you can call it the Sony model. I do want Xbox to have something of their own there. And I was wanting Perfect Dark to be that one to scratch the itch, but that's first person. So it's not that.
And Fonz and I don't mean the Sony model per se, because Ubisoft and other big studios have created
do their thing. Yeah.
And it's not a Sony model. It's just Sony's exclusives have followed that. Like when Fonz and I talk about Assassin's Creed Odyssey, like I would love for Xbox to put out a third person, that scope, big open world, RPG action adventure mechanics, because that's the one thing they're missing. It's the cog one thing. That's I don't know when that comes out.
That's what Ray Chi just said. He said, Fonz only needs Ubisoft games. He knows my love for Ubisoft games. Yeah. When everybody else hates them, I'm like, what's so wrong with their games? Like, I have a blast with them. Now, I will say they are kind of egregious at times with their microtransactions and stuff. Yeah, they can be kind of egregious and terrible in that respect, but I can ignore them. Yeah, I can ignore them. And a lot of people don't like the Ubisoft tropes. They don't like the fact that you climb up a pole here, or, go up this mountain and you unlock this area or whatever. I don't mind that. And I don't mind seeing all kinds of stuff to go and do, like all these little side quests and stuff, because I will run around and do these things if I want to. If I don't want to, I simply don't do it, but it gives me more to do. I did the same thing with Hogwarts. It's like there was a lot to do in that game, and I did a lot of it, but there was a lot I ignored as well, and I love that game. I just want something like that for Xbox.
So what would your next acquisition be?
Ooh. Honestly, I think I'm not even going to go. The smart move for them as a business would go for a Japanese publisher or a Japanese developer, right? You have to go there. It would be a publisher. So Capcom would be huge for them, because I prefer Capcom games over something like Square Enix.
Yeah. Now, to all of you, I keep saying the same thing because I predicted exactly what they did. Capcom is nowhere in any of their stuff, right? They had Bandai, they had Konami, they had Square, they had Sega. They did not mention Capcom, right?
Yeah, it was not in their listing of their shopping list, right?
I keep saying this to y'all. You are not the target for that. You have to forget about you. When they're looking at Japan, they're looking at the customer that you are not, because they covered you, right? They spent $80 billion in getting all these studios for you, right? So they need to go cover the people that you are not, right? And I keep saying that. Like, Square to me isn't as good. I like Sega. I like the games they have. To me, that would be my personal target in Japan. But I recognize Square has big freaking IPs, and that's why I keep saying that. But go ahead. What would you do after that, Fonz? I want to see what you, because I would think like Ubisoft, Warner.
Ubisoft is. Well, Ubisoft is actually pretty tangible because I read in our article that they were looking to be bought.
Yep.
So,
I mean, they keep trying to fend off hostile takeovers. But I mean, they're financially.
But aren't they? Aren't they? Doesn't Tencent have a lot of stock invested into Ubisoft? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they can't. They're in a contractual mode where they're not allowed to get more, so that they can't. It's like 5 years.
So they can't take over. Yeah, because that's what people were scared about, was the fact that Tencent was going to do a hostile takeover.
Yep.
Yeah, but yeah, I would probably go with a Ubisoft after Capcom. What about you, Colt? What would you like to see them get?
I can't say now because Hargeet said that they already got me covered, so I don't get to pick.
Well, no, that's for the Japan side, right? Yeah. So go past Japan.
Yeah.
What
would you want personally?
Warner Brothers. I want to take Warner Brothers, and then they can get all those IP and just build great games with those awesome studios. Except for Rocksteady, I don't know what happened, but I think Warner Brothers would be big. It'd be good. Be nice for me.
Gotham Knights turned out to be a decent game after all. Like Gotham Knights was a good game. It was fun.
It's one of those. If you find it for $40, please give it a shot. It's worth their time.
Yeah. I definitely playing through that.
I would like a bunch of little studios to be bought. There's a whole lot of like smaller things that they could go pick up.
But which one would be your favorite?
Of the ones that they have on the list, probably IO, but I can't ignore Larian would be a good pickup. They had a couple of others that are interesting too, and some of them are mobile, right? And you have to understand that is a big focus from Microsoft, so they will probably pull some of those. But yeah, I think IO would be a good one. I was kind of hoping to see Asobo there. I didn't see Asobo there as far as one of their shortlist. They had it in the bigger context, but not in the shortlist. Yeah. So I would like to see them. Some of the other ones don't seem bad either, right? So they have some indie studios that they were looking at. If there's low enough cost, go for it. Why not?
You know what I was about to say? Asobo, that would be organic growth, wouldn't it?
It is 100%. But it is, right?
I hate that term. I think it's so stupid. While, right? Organic growth.
So, but either way, but I would like to see that happen. IO, I think they're already working on a game with Microsoft. We got confirmation. Project Dragon is something that's happening. So that would be another one. If this is possible, I don't know. Embracer's in trouble. Could they potentially pick up Crystal from them, or maybe Eidos Montreal from them, right, and get the IPs with it? That would be fantastic, right? So pick up one of those guys.
You know what I would like to do? My pie in the sky would be take Rockstar from Take-Two.
Oh my god!
Pie in the sky.
Wow. But yeah,
That's
otherwise,
really
I agree with you guys. To me, the Japanese side, I'd say get Sega. Like that takes care of your Japan side, and then Warner. I really like the idea of Warner, but for me, it's the whole thing. You get the whole thing because then there's no question you have the IP, right? You have you own the IP. Do whatever you need with it. That's what I would go after. So,
those are good picks. I just want to shout out. I've got over 500 people here, and I've never had that before live. So I appreciate you guys. Please hit that like button if you enjoy the show. I appreciate it a lot. It'll help the channel as well. Appreciate you guys. If you're listening at home, come by the channel sometime. Fonz Gaming here on YouTube. We do this live every Sunday, and I get good guests like Colt, like Hargeet. These guys are awesome today. Appreciate you guys being here. And I knew once we started the show, the conversation would just flow. Like I didn't need to really set up anything for you two. You two are just awesome. Two pillars of the community that have really freaking... Colt, you've been here for years on YouTube, and you've been doing your thing. I've watched you grow immensely. Like it's insane from where you started to where you're at today. Yes, I see you growing there. Hargeet, same as you, man. Like you don't really do much on your personal channel, but you go through all these podcasts and you're on just about every one in the community for Xbox. And it's just crazy that you're out there, but I get it. You're such a good personality and a good person. So it makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate you.
So Colt had this awesome moment when we were out there in LA. Yeah. Cause he's so like well known. They had this, I don't know if everybody knows this, for FanFest, they had like giveaways. So there was an all expenses paid giveaway from like Canada and the US, right? So the folks that were from Canada, they actually caught up with us and couldn't believe that they saw Colt Eastwood. And we had this like 10, 15-minute thing where they're like, oh my God, it's Colt Eastwood. And they're like getting pictures with Colt Eastwood. Like, it's so awesome.
Surreal, but it's an awesome thing.
It made their day that this could happen. It's just so cool, right?
But that wasn't the most crazy thing I witnessed. I saw this picture of Colt signing an Xbox to Colt.
Yes.
For Colt. It was like, it was a doppelganger. They were just staring at each other as I was like, wait a minute. I had to look at that picture several times.
We all signed.
But no, you guys look like you had a great time. And one of these times I got to come out there and see everybody and see you as well. I'll probably get punched in the nose by a couple of fanboys for sure. I got a super chat. Don't want to go away here. God Emperor Sofa King. He says, I love the name. He says, Elder Scrolls 6 is going to hurt a lot of people in 2026. Now,
2028.
Wait. It's going to be 2026 when they announce a release date 2 years later. Colt, that's what it's going to be. Yeah, I don't expect Elder Scrolls.
I think it's going to be 2028.
Yeah, it's going to be a while.
I mean, Phil said 5+ years, and they probably figure that's probably what they're going to take to build the game. There's a whole discussion about that, but
anyways, I want to go ahead and end the show. We've done almost 2 hours here, guys. I appreciate the hell out of you, and I appreciate the chat so much. Thank you. Without you guys coming here every week, I would not have the drive to even be here. But guess what? Every week, even if there's a handful of you here, which there always is, of the same people that come every week, you guys are the ones that really drive me to do this. Appreciate you so much. Colt, let everybody know where they can find you and what you got going on next on the Colt Eastwood YouTube channel. I kind of gave it away. Damn it.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. I haven't really planned, but I would like to cover some Forza stuff, some new stuff that's come up, and people have a lot of questions. But I have my show tomorrow night for July 4th Eve, but my co-host is from Canada, so he doesn't have to worry about that. That's pretty nice, right?
What do they do to celebrate?
I think they just continue to make fun of Americans because we're dorks.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to that, and just need to get back to making content, and I don't just listen to the FTC hearing this week and just bite my fingernails all the way down the nub. But I appreciate you having me on, and shout out to the chat for hanging out and talking with me while we talked about Xbox being number one.
Oh, before I go to Hargeet, I want to give a big shout out to Boss Mod, Lethal Papa, who holds it down as a moderator in this chat every week. Not only is he here, this man is on RDX. This man goes to Primetime Gaming. This man is everywhere. He goes to your show, Colt, and mods for you as well. He's all over the place. Does a great job. Appreciate you, Lethal. Hargeet, where can they find you? Because on every podcast, right?
Yeah, I'm all over the place in podcasts. If you want to chat with me, I guess it would be on Discord because I'm not on Twitter. My tag there is HChani. And then also the same on Xbox, it's HChani. Yep. And then, you can catch me on RDX, but not this week because it's July 4th. And happy 4th of July for all the people in the U.S. Hopefully you had a good weekend. And I don't know if you have tomorrow off, good for you. If not, enjoy the 4th. And then, on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern U.S. time, I'm on Boom's Primetime Gaming podcast. And then on Thursdays, Zocker, me, and So Shady have started a new podcast called Zealots of Gaming. That's at 8 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. Check us out on Zocker's channel.
It's definitely a good podcast as well. If you have not checked it out, Zealots of Gaming on Zocker 87's channel. They're doing good things over there with Hargeet and So Shady. So check them out. All right, guys. Until next time, game on, people.